Why do so many driving test candidates make this simple mistake and potentially fail tests because of it? When you get asked to do the exercise left thumb behind in your driving test, you will pull over by the side of the road, and then the assessor will ask you to remember that particular spot, and then they'll ask you to drive off and at some point to come back to the same place. So this is the most simple mistake that people do, because there's no clear rule. What should your angle be when you're using the forward driveway to make a 3-point turn? Okay, so when you intended to, for example, if you're traveling this direction and you want to use the driveway on the right hand side, you will simply go into that driveway. But now the question is how. There's a lot of confusion about whether you should angle the car so you can sort of reverse easier to the left if you're using the right hand side driveway, or should you keep straight? So it'll depend on a few factors really. It's your choice, okay? So if you're using the driveway on the right hand side, what's important that you drive into the driveway and you can't cross the property line. So the property line can't be crossed, okay? So other thing that's important is that you get your rear end of your vehicle inside of that driveway so it's not sticking out. Now, whether we should angle it to the right-hand side in this particular situation or not, it will depend on the width of the driveway and the length of the driveway, okay? So you are more than welcome to turn slightly in an angle and end up like that. So it'll be a lot easier to reverse out and face that direction, okay? However, the downside of this particular maneuver when you angle your vehicle to make an easier 3-point turn is a lot of people get on the verge, they cross the verge and potentially break someone's, reticulation. Back in 2014 or 15, there was this guy who was residing on Cross Street, I believe, in Queen's Park, and people used to use his driveway because it was handy. It was on the route where people used to do their driving assessments, and apparently someone's broken his sprinklers as they were using his driveway, and from then on he was starting to chase people, getting out of his house with a baseball bat. Hopefully that's not going to be the case with you, but my point is, if you angle slightly, that's okay, but don't cross into that side of the property line. Because if you cross onto the verge, that's not good because you could potentially fail your test as well. Or you can even hit the letterbox. Let me just recap on this. So, if you decided to use that driveway, if you end up parallel with the verge lines, it's better to end up closer to the left-hand side, because that way, when you reverse out, you're going to have a little bit more margin for error. So that's very simple. Now, if you end up going on an angle, that's fine, but be careful how sharp your angle is and, whether you cross over to the property line on the right-hand side in this particular situation, where there might be the reticulation system of that property, which you could potentially run over and break components of it. So if you do it, just make sure that it's not too sharp, okay? So I wouldn't go sharper than that. So it's not quite 45-degree angle, and as long as your rear end is inside, so I wouldn't go sharper than this. So then you can slightly easier get out and, do your maneuver. So if you're using the left-hand side, okay, which is, if you've got options, it's probably not the best idea to use the left-hand side driveway. But if you have to, just make sure that you hook slightly outwards, because you've got to open up an angle, and also make sure there's no traffic coming from opposite, and there's no one overtaking you from behind, because you would have indicated left. But you've got to hook slightly out in order to end up correctly in there. And then obviously you would again reverse out, but in this instance you would have to reverse out on the far side of the road, which means that you've got to give way to that direction, and also you've got to give way to that direction. So you've got to get straight out a little bit further, and then you would end up on the far side of the road before you continue forward. Of course, you would indicate and check your blind spot as you need to. I'll attach the playlist for exercise left thumb behind, so you can check all of our videos on that particular subject. So let me recap. So if you're using the left-hand side driveway, Okay, there's no point going on an angle, but you've got to hook slightly out to open up an angle and then drive in. Okay, and then as you're reversing out, you've got to end up on the far side of the road facing that direction. So it is more difficult than using the right hand side driveway, but in this particular case, as I said, there's no point angling too much because you're reversing out to the far side of the road. So geometrically, you shouldn't have a problem at all, even if your car is longer, you know, if it's a station wagon or, you know, if it's a four-wheel drive, you're still not going to have any problem reversing out to the far side of the road. So what else you can do? If you want to reverse in the driveway, it's best to overshoot the left-hand side driveway and then reverse into it. It's still going to be a 3-point turn, so they're not going to mind how you do it. It may be slightly more difficult, but look, you know, if that's your choice. A lot of people find it easier than going forward into the left-hand side driveway. So what I mean is basically overshoot, you indicate left, after you overshot the driveway, then you reverse into it and you go forward out. So that should be pretty easy, okay? So if that's what you choose, that's fine. Let me just recap again. So if you want to go past the driveway, stop up there, indicate left, reverse in the driveway and go back out. So that would be a lot easier option than going forward. At least some people find it easier, those who've practiced on it, and they find it sort of less difficult to handle throughout the manoeuvre. So there's one more option that you can do when it comes to driveways, unless you're doing a U-turn at the roundabout or side street or T-junction, is to reverse on the right-hand side, which we never recommend because it's a lot easier going forward in the driveway and reversing out. If you really want to show off that you can drive and you know how to do everything, what you would do, you would overshoot, stop around there somewhere, reverse into the driveway, and then go back out that way, okay? Absolutely unnecessary unless it's some sort of exhibition driving test or so, which doesn't even exist. Avoid these simple mistakes by implementing these tricks, and I'm sure you're going to find it a lot easier. So, you know, like I said, a lot of people find it easier to reverse into the left-hand side driveway than going forward into it. And also, a lot of people find it a little bit easier to go forward into the driveway on the right-hand side and to go on an angle a little bit in order to have an easier sort of job reversing out and ending up on the left-hand side without sort of blocking the street or, you know, ending up in the middle of the road. Thank you for watching. If you've got any questions, please feel free to post down in the comments below. Like and share this video if someone can benefit from it, and we'll see you in the next video.